Well, a good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you wherever you are in the world. Um, Leave a comment. Let me know where you live and what your weather is like because I'm in Perth and honest to goodness, it is 20 past 9. We're expecting a high of 40 degrees Celsius in about 3 hours and it's currently 32. So believe you me, summer has finally kicked in here in Western Australia. Anyway, before I go into the content today, of course, we're going to be talking about pyrite. That's why I've got it as a label. And I just want to remind people that when I do these videos, I recognise that they are long and that not all of the content is going to interest all people. So I put the chapter timings in the description for you to just jump to the parts that are of interest to you. Now, before I get into the video today and the actual content, as usual, I want to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. If you're a newbie, I hope you'll continue to remain with the channel, that you subscribe and that you find something useful and of benefit to you. I've got a number of playlists. Feel free to go through the channel and have a look at that, at what we offer. Because for me, it's all about sharing information. And also because when we share our information, we pool it, we increase the group pool of knowledge, if you like. So I give my information and I truly welcome feedback from other people about their experiences with certain crystals. And of course, this is going to include pyrite today. If you've got questions, write a question in the comment, or if you've got some feedback or thoughts or whatever, and I will try and respond to your comment on the wall in a timely way. I don't always see the notifications come through quickly. And the other thing is I may actually pick up on it, and if I do, I'll let you know in the Sunday yarning video that I load, which is designed to be a little bit more personalised, a little bit more interactive, because I'm not really able to do lives here. But anyway, let's crack on and get on with the subject we're here to look at today. And when I say look at, I mean literally. So what we've got here is a couple of images. I know that the slides are not necessarily the best looking slides that you could get, but what I'm doing is I'm showing you stuff. So what we can see here is that pyrite actually forms in a number of different shapes, shall we say, and the round sphere is actually a polished cluster. You know, the clusters, you've got a couple of small ones there underneath that brighter gold tumbled one. You've got some, I think they're called, I can't remember, I've got the name further along. They're not hexahedrons, they're tetrahedrons, I think. And then, of course, you've got the cubes. Of course, one of my absolute favourites is the pyrite disc there. And sometimes it's called a pyrite sun, other times it's called a pyrite disc. I tend to call it a disc. So as always, when it comes to things like the crystals and recommendations for the Zodiac, I am a believer that just because it says, pyrite is beneficial to Leos, it's beneficial to all people. What it means is that people with a Leo ascendancy or a sun sign, they are going to find the qualities better for them, because if you look at the Astro life path, the Leo, of course, is a lion. And this is representative of strength and, courage, things like that. These are the attributes of pyrite as well. So it would enhance the lessons of experience for a star sign when there's a recommendation. But, there's different times, different points in our lives where where we will reach a stage where we might need to actually get a little bit of help being strong and addressing some of life's challenges that we have. So anybody can use pyrite. But what can I say about this? When we talk about pyrite, there's also a level of passion and enthusiasm on the positive side. But the other thing is too, to remember, if we are too strong, so there needs to be a balance there. Other people might perceive that strength as being intimidating, and when it comes to being over strong, it can actually flick into violence at different times. So this is about learning a balance and incorporating strength and power into our lives in positive ways. So we're going to look more specifically at the metaphysical attributes of pyrite and break it down in a little while. But from an overview perspective, pyrite is actually not just about courage and strength. It's a stone of creativity. It's a very powerful manifestation crystal. It's very good for students and other people who need to remember new information, and it's excellent for developing the psychic gifts and that capacity to connect to the higher realms. Because it is an energy that resonates with the sun, it's got an energy about it that is both joyous and uplifting. So these are just a couple of things to bear in mind. As I say, I'll break it down more in a moment, but we're going to take a look at the mineral components now. So you can see from this image here that it does have quite a yellow colour to it, but not all pyrite is this bright yellow, you know. But when it was, historically it's been referred to as fool's gold, because a lot of the time when people were out prospecting, historically they would find pyrite and think they'd actually found gold. Now, if you've ever seen real gold nuggets, you will know that they wouldn't hold that thought for long that pyrite was actually gold, but it was a common mistake back in the day. So it's kind of a brassy yellow colour, but it can have a more grey tinge to it. You know, as we saw on those other images, they were pretty accurate and descriptive as far as what pyrite might look like. Now, so a bit of background, it was used commercially for the production of sulfuric acid, which it's no longer used for, as I understand it. I could be wrong, but I'm open to correction. The other thing is, it's not generally, although I believe it's got qualities of iron in it as well. It might be that the more iron there is in the mineral structure of it, that it has more of a grey tinge. What else can I let you know about it? It does oxidize, okay, or it can oxidize very slowly if it's left in a moist environment, and it will naturally release sulfuric acid, which is why I've put on here use with caution. Also, if you've got the clusters and that kind of stuff, there's some kind of chemical toxicity with that. I believe it's arsenic that, the arsenic factor, I think, is not associated with all pyrite clusters. It's when you've got the tetrahedrons, I think they're called, but we'll have a look at that in a moment. And I'll have the right term there because I've written it down, but I just can't jump ahead right now. But it's when you get these kind of clusters that you've got a greater risk of being exposed to arsenic. So anyway, I'm not a geo. I suggest that you actually do your Googling if you decide to buy. When you're looking at an image, if you're buying online, actually, look, I've got buying tips down the track. But at any time when you're buying, make sure you do your homework. Here we go. Goodness, how did I forget that? Okay, it's called a Pyritohedron, okay? And what this apparently means is it's got 12 faces. Now, the interesting fact of this, because there's only a couple of different formations that pyrite has, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them specifically because I actually believe from a numerology... Gosh, I can't speak this morning. It must be the heat. From a numerological perspective, I believe this adds power to the actual crystal itself. When we talk about a 12-faced crystal, 12 is a sacred number. There is power within the number. And if we associate with the pyrite, which is already a powerful crystal, it kind of, I guess, is like a double whammy of it. Okay, so let's put this into perspective. The number 12 is considered to be the product of the sacred and the secular, that 3 by 4, the multiplication, and is the sum of life and good fortune. So this is where we get this additional benefit. And this power, this belief is included in many different faiths, and that includes Christianity. But of course, I've got a sense of humour, so I like to have a little bit of a laugh about this. And I found this when I was doing my research, was that the Christians associate 12 as being a sacred number because there were 12 apostles at the Last Supper. And I sort of think, if 12 is supposed to be lucky, I'm not sure it was that lucky for Jesus, unless Judas, because there's a whole debate and argument out there. Was he actually a betrayer, or did he simply follow through on what Jesus asked him to do, which was to betray him so that they could get some money for the families? I think that's what it was about, or that's the other side of the argument, because otherwise 12 is not a lucky number for Jesus as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I digress. So once again, when we talk about sacred numbers and crystals and influences on the crystal energy, the Pyrite Cube has some additional magic. But I mean, the first thing that you can see when you look at this image here is that not all Pyrite Cubes are actually perfect. So when we talk about this, the sacred magic of the numerology, we're talking about the perfectly formed cube. And from this perspective, we're talking about what is referred to as the Holy Trinity. Now, a lot of the time people think when we say the Holy Trinity that we're actually talking about Christianity, but the Holy Trinity was known as sacred long before Christianity came on the horizon, shall we say. But it wasn't called holy, I don't think. It was just a sacred number. And it's because it represents this merging of mind, body, spirit. The Christians interpret that as Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, if you like. Other religions probably would refer to it as basically the Creator Spirit and the body, or the divine spark that lies within, the namaste, the spiritual flame, all of this kind of stuff. So we're talking about a real unification process here with the cube. But anyway, talking about the cube, you can see some are more grotty than others. From what I understand through doing my research, is those grotty ones are probably I say grotty looking, are probably the ones that they probably will come up much better than that with a clean, by the way, but they're more likely to have arsenic in them, I think. But obviously I'm open to correction here, okay? But you also see too that the pyrite cubes, they actually grow on a host rock, and you can either break them up, pull them apart, or whatever. But of course, once you take it off the host rock, you're then looking at the image on the left-hand side. Sometimes it's going to be damaged when it's removed. I like to actually have my crystals, if they're on a host, when I see them, I like to keep them on the host, and that becomes what's referred to, I believe, as a mineral specimen. And in this image, what we're looking at is what is referred to as a Pyrite Cathedral, and it is so named because it has, whether it's the egg-shaped one on the right or the cluster on the left, I've put the big image in of the layers. Now, these are naturally forming, just so you know. These heaps of little layers, and because they're pointed, somebody at some point in time decided that these points were in the style of the Gothic churches, and so this is how it got its name. But either way, it's a very beautiful looking crystal. Now, the image on the right actually was being retailed as a Pyrite Cathedral, but I've got to say, look, the image doesn't do it justice unless you magnify and this kind of thing. So you've got to actually, once again, I say, do your homework, look at a heap of different images, get a really good idea and comfortable level, shall we say, of confidence when it comes to buying. And that way, especially if you're buying online, you're going to know the questions to ask the retailer, or can they take a close-up photograph of the actual crystal itself so you can have a better look. Now, the other thing that I'd like to point out about this image on the right is that's obviously polished. They've tried to turn it into a Pyrite Cathedral egg, I would imagine, or a palm stone that sits in your hand for when you're meditating. I try not to be judgmental, but it really, when you have something as beautiful as that and then you feel the need to polish it and change it, to me it kind of seems a little sacrilegious and a bit disrespectful. But obviously there must be people that want that kind of thing. I'd rather have a good mineral sample or a cluster or something like that sitting on the environment. And if it comes to, wearing on the person or whatever, I'd be happier just with a little pyrite cluster that I can either pop in my bra or put in my pocket or whatever. What else can I say? Some buying tips. Actually, no, I will say something else about it. Apparently, pyrite jewellery is not that common. My apologies, I had to take a wee break and sort some stuff out here, so hopefully there hasn't been a huge change in the way my volume, my tone, or whatever. But anyway, we'll crack on with this. When it comes to the spiritual metaphysical benefits, there is a lot. Pyrite is a very spiritual crystal, and this is why I say everybody can benefit from it. Okay, there's no restrictions on who can use it. It's very good for developing your spiritual vision and your psychic gifts. It's considered to be a good companion if you're using or for using with amethyst to actually help ground this new spiritual awareness and understanding, and actually bring that into the cellular memory, or bring up rather, access the cellular memory and anchor that into the physical existence. I've already said that it resonates with the sun, so it's got this warm, joyous energy about it. If you were wanting to develop the third eye, there's a couple of techniques, but I'll talk about that down at the chakra when we talk about chakras. So because it's a stone that brings about a sense of empowerment as well, and feeling confident and comfortable in our decision making, where there is that letting go of the fear, and we're coming to the next phase of our existence, if you like, on the earth plane, certainly. And when we're developing our psychic gifts and our spiritual gifts, to be able to have any level of accuracy with them, we have to actually have done a release of the fear, those irrational ones, before we actually progress to the next stage. So this is where pyrite can help us. It also actually has protective qualities about it. So it's considered to be a protector if you were in a situation where you felt that you were at risk of harm from other people or from the environment. You would wear it as a talisman or whatever. Other times it's considered to be a protection against psychic attack. And what I find interesting is that it's actually recommended for people when you're doing dangerous work. Now, this doesn't mean, just to be clear, if you're going to be doing dangerous work, that you go, oh, well, I'm all right, I can go out there and take these risks because I'm wearing pyrite. When we're doing dangerous work, we've got physical risks to our environment, to our body and to ourselves from the environment. So it's not a matter of disregarding these risks. It is about becoming aware of them and seeing them before we do, before we're at the pointy end of harm, shall we say. I mean, look, sometimes I have been in situations where the physical risks were very real, and by using energy, shall we say, and putting protection on a vehicle, there becomes this inexplicable near-miss situation. But to me, that's a last resort. I always look at what are the practical efforts that I can do to preserve my own health and well-being before I look to do the energy, So when I say practical, that also incorporates what physical activities I can do. Do I need to clear out toxic plants from the environment or whatever? It just stands to reason. Or if I'm living in a snake infested area, then basically create a space around the house. This is just an example of how I work with it. Is I recognise and respect that snakes actually, I'm in their environment when I'm living in bush areas, and so then what I do is I remove the attractants from around my immediate area. And to put this into perspective, water snakes are quite often attracted to water bowls and dogs' water bowls when we're in hot areas. So basically, I wouldn't have the dog's water bowl by the back door, because the risks there are, obviously the snake is going to come for water. If the door's open, then the snake might end up inside. It's just common sense stuff. So anyway, back to what kind of metaphysical properties. Yes, very good for centering, very good for aligning the chakras and the auric bodies, and very good for enhancing the psychic and spiritual communication. From a physical perspective, any crystal is going to work on the parts of the body that are influenced by the chakra that it's associated with. And of course, we haven't talked about that yet, but when it comes to pyrite, the primary chakra that it's associated with is actually the solar plexus, or the yellow chakra. So when we talk about that, we're talking about, from a physical perspective, the organs of digestion. We're talking about, oh gosh, what's it? the upper body strength, if you like, not the upper body because that's your shoulders, abdominal strength, your abdominal muscles, things like that. But at the same time, when it comes to pyrite, it's going to be able to support the health. This is, I've got to say here, this is a claim. I haven't tried it. I can't say that I've actually noticed or observed these kind of things when I use pyrite. I tend to notice more of the emotional benefits and the psychological benefits of a crystal as opposed to the health, but that's because I don't actually have a lot of health conditions, physical health ones. So if you've had experience of it and made observations, please do let us know. But this is the theory anyway, that it aids digestion, that it assists with the inflammation of the joints if you struggle from those kind of conditions. People with bronchitis and bowel problems are supposed to benefit from using or wearing pyrite as well. I've already talked about it being a protector to be worn on the person when you're doing dangerous work, but you can also use it as an environmental protector at home energetically. So I probably should have put that one into the spiritual metaphysical properties. Did I mention the eyes? It's supposed to help with eye health, which that of course includes your vision and that kind of thing. When we talk about the brain, it's supposed to be able to strengthen brain function. Now, I would equate that within the modern environment, that it supports and encourages healthy thinking and the recreational creation of neural pathways as part of this positive thinking. I put this down as being a physical thing, but I'm really not sure about this. Okay, it's supposed to be a protector against radioactivity in the environment. So bearing that in mind, when we talk about radioactivity, we're talking, I guess, about energetic transmissions from your microwave or even from your computer or your mobile phone. So it's allegedly, I say that, allegedly a protection against those kind of environmental influences as well as pollution. But I'm very open to hearing what other people have got to say. So it's the elements of the mind and emotions that attract me to pyrite. And this is because, as I say, it's not just about this building personal courage and strength. It's about learning new things, putting knowledge into action. And that will often require being able to focus and concentrate. So pyrite is recommended for students, especially if they need help to process new information and to be able to remember it and recall it. Now, the other thing that pyrite will support is this creative thinking, which makes for a person that's good as part of a teamwork environment. This means being able to brainstorm with other people, think outside the box, be able to use discernment. And when we talk about discernment, this is the capacity to think a little bit deeper, and to be able to differentiate between what is the illusion or what's the superficial on the outside, and to be able to see the truth. Now, when we talk about seeing the truth of something, it also involves being able to see the truth within individuals. Now, of course, when we use our knowledge and our gifts, that doesn't mean violating other people's personal space, but it means being able to recognize that there is a lack of continuity, shall we say. Their mouth is saying one thing, but their actions are saying something totally different. So we're able to recognize inauthenticity with other people. So that helps us with our decision making. It will also stimulate your memory and enhance it. So that's not just about dredging up past information that might be relevant to the current. I suppose it is actually. So you've got for the students who are studying, there is that need to be able to hold on to information, to be able to store it there in their memory bank and then pull it through when they need it. Well, the other thing is, if we're coming from a space of wisdom, then we must be able to dig further back in our memory and just... I don't know how to explain it really. I'm trying to articulate it, but I'm thinking, quite often we of the older generation are a bit astounded by what we think to be common sense information, which young people won't know about. But that's because they haven't had the experiences. So, For example, I might see that idea of being safe and not putting your dog's water bowl by the back door or the front door or whatever because it'll attract snakes. Many people won't know that unless they've actually had a snake come in their house, which actually I have. So when we put this into perspective, yes, it's being able to bring this information back when it's needed and when we go into a new environment. I just want to make the point before we go on to the next slide that when it comes to pyrite being associated with the yellow chakra, remember chakras are multi-layered and there is also colour healing benefits. So I associate pyrite more with the stronger attributes of healing, which is about that developing the strength, about having courage. Not so much the passion, but the passion is important and that's part of it. But where hope is part of the yellow chakra as well, I don't actually see pyrite as being my number one choice, would be the best way to describe it if I was trying to build hope within myself. I think there's other crystals that are actually better for that have a lighter yellow to them. But you could still use pyrite. If that's all you've got in your collection, pyrite will still help with that. I should be clear, with building hope. I'm having a lot of interruptions today. I'm sorry about that. Look, I'll just try and speed through this anyway because the video is getting long. But the bottom line is I've said and repeatedly said that I associate pyrite primarily with the yellow or the solar plexus chakra. Now, a lot of this is about, many people won't realise that when we're going through life and we feel like we're at the victim and mercy of other people, this is because we are not standing in our personal power. We either lack confidence or we're scared of being powerful. Sometimes people are powerful people, but they just choose to suck it up and repress that aspect of themselves to keep the peace or for whatever the reasons are. Whereas when we're activating and working and strengthening this yellow chakra, we are standing up and becoming comfortable to assert who and what we are in kind and loving ways, preferably, okay? Now, I did mention too that I would give you some tips on how to use pyrite with the chakras, and that includes if you were wanting to develop those psychic and intuitive gifts, then you could meditate. If you lie down to meditate, you could put a piece on your third eye or brow chakra if that's what you wanted to do. You could simply meditate sitting in the sitting position like this, but holding perhaps a pyrite cluster or even one of those cathedrals in your hand to enhance your capacity to communicate with the other side, your celestial communication, shall we say, spiritual communication. If it was knowledge that you wanted to seek, you would be able to do the same thing, which is put the pyrite cluster upon your crown chakra or hold it and channel universal information and knowledge into the physical actions. Now, if it's that incorporation of knowledge, information, and the gifts and abundance of pyrite, we would call that a trinity, a mental trinity, the learning, processing, and understanding. And yeah, anyway, if you were looking to do that, yes, I think I probably would be meditating with one of the Pyrite cathedrals. So that's just a couple of tips for you there. So just an interesting tidbit here is that when it comes to using pyrite beyond the gridding information or meditation or just wearing as a nugget or whatever, you can actually make jewelry out of pyrite, but it's never been particularly popular because it actually looks cheap. And I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on it, that it actually tarnishes and goes a bit green and revolting looking. But at the same time, what I didn't know until I was doing the research here is that what we call marcasite is a form of pyrite, and that has been more popular for use in jewelry. In fact, my aunt gave me a beautiful marcasite brooch many, many years ago that I loved, and I completely misunderstood what marcasite was. But yes, you can use jewelry. For my own perspective, I guess I would be inclined to use pyrite more as an environmental healer, or if I was needing to bump up certain qualities such as my confidence, personal confidence, if I was feeling a bit vulnerable or whatever, perhaps sleep with a little bit under my pillow. Obviously, we've talked about meditation and holding it. That's another one as well. What else can I say? If you... let me think on this for a moment. I just want to make the point that I never used pyrite to open up my third eye or as part of developing my psychic gifts. So when I give you that information about, particularly, I guess, the Holy Trinity, it's just not part of my experience, but I'm open to hearing other people. So basically, you would use the techniques that I've already mentioned, but you would use fluorite or calcite as part of the learning and understanding process. In fact, I would be inclined to work with calcite just on its own. That's a story for another day. I will be doing videos about that. I've got the Iceland Spa. I haven't actually worked with it yet. I'm talking about the new crystal, but I have worked with it in the past, and it's another one that I'm very fond of. Just a reminder, though, that if you're going to use crystals lying down and meditating and putting them on your body, just be aware you don't need to have great big chunky chunks. You can have smaller type items, and certainly if you're going to be putting it on your brow chakra, if it's too big and heavy, it's just not comfortable. You won't be able to sustain meditating for any great length of time. So as always, I try and give people a couple of affirmations that they can work with. But just a reminder too, that when it comes to affirmations, it's actually best to make them yourself. But good practice is to have I am. You're making a statement to yourself, to the universe. Start the sentence with I am, finish it with I am. It's generally better to do one particular point at a time when it comes to affirmations. I mean, you could do the I am a powerful person who is willing to release my fears about being a powerful person to the universe. I am. It's just too big of a gobful. So generally, because you want the universe to concisely hear what it is that you're putting out there, it's I am a powerful person. I am willing to release my fears. Have it as separate sentences and perhaps repeat them 10 times each morning or whatever, or throughout the day whenever you feel like it, because you're just basically you're making this statement to the universe. Now, what I've done with this one here as well is down the bottom I have put an invocation. Now, once again, I would say that you adapt these to your needs. Whatever it is that you're trying to create and manifest, then this is just an example of how you would do it. You always finish off an invocation with gratitude as well. Just a reminder there, the universal energy responds to gratitude very quickly. And you also embed that into your psyche too, if you put the thanks be on the end. As a messenger, if you're not aware, if this is your first time visiting the channel, when I use crystals as oracles, I actually get people to put their hand in, and it's like a lucky dip. Now, of course, when I give oracle messages using crystals, it's very much dependent on the person and their situation. So it's not one size fits all. But dependent on the person and the situation, if they picked a pyrite, I probably would be pulling out a message such as reminding them that they are a powerful person. If they've been the victim of something horrible, because it does happen, that they have the strength to actually shift past this and to move on. And also potentially even to if justice was the issue, if there needs to be some kind of redress or whatever, that they have the internal fortitude to make good of that. Now, other times it might be simply a case of manifestation, where the person is turning around and saying things like, I have a dream and I would love to see X and Y, but it's never going to happen. That defeatist, self-sabotage type thought that people quite often have. And I was sort of reflecting on this in between the videos. I actually haven't put notes for this particular slide when it comes to pyrite. And I was just recalling people that I've actually interacted with when doing services and that business of, well, why do you say that? Why do you think you can't do it? Because pyrite actually is this reminder of innovation. Whatever you think, what you believe is what you create. So if you think that you're never going to be able to do X or Y, then that's exactly what you're going to be able to achieve. But on the other hand, if you've got a really big dream and it's, I've got this dream of doing X and Y, but it's never going to happen because I can't do UVW, that kind of thing. So it could be, for example, a person who turns around and says to me, well, I'd like to run my own business, but I just don't, I know that I don't have the skills and that kind of stuff. I'm just not educated enough, and I'm too old, and I'm this and I'm that. And it's my response to that would be, well, Pyrite is saying, hold on to those dreams. You are a powerful person and you can actually create this stuff. But what we need to do is break it down into steps, okay? What is stopping you from going forward to doing the education or developing the skills that you actually need to put this dream into reality, if you like? And these are just very simple examples that I'm pulling out where somebody might turn around and say, well, I know to do that I've actually got to go to TAFE or college and do a course, but I actually am, it could be I'm illiterate, I actually can't read or write. A lot of people don't know that, because here in Australia, I don't know about overseas, but there are issues with literacy. Or it could be a case of, I'm just no good with technology or whatever. Well, okay, so you've got a dream. Let's break it down. You currently can't read or write. Is there something to stop you? Are you dyslexic? If there is a formal thing there, then obviously universities and schools have got to work around that and help you to learn in ways that don't require this written content. It might be providing a learning support person or whatever, so just these kind of things. And if it's you don't have the techno speed or whatever, you're not good at typing, you're very slow on a computer, well, there's programs out there that are free that you could be doing in your spare time. And if they say, well, I don't have a lot of time, love, by the time I've been to work and that, it's like, well, do you spend time on social media? Do you troll about on Facebook and all of that kind of stuff? Well, you know how to navigate some of technology, and this is a matter, instead of just wasting your time, using your time wisely. These are basically the pure message of Pyrite, I guess, is if you think you can do it, you will be able to do it. And you are far more powerful than what you actually give yourself credit for, I guess. That kind of sums it up. So besides the heat, I'm struggling a little bit with technology today. It's becoming a bit of a nightmare. I think probably everybody's going, it's all too hard, it's too hot. But anyway, getting back to the content here and Pyrite, when it comes to caring for Pyrite, it's actually, obviously it's not a super hard stone, but it's pretty hardy really as part of being able to tolerate certain things when we're caring for it as part of our collection. Look, if it's one of the cathedrals, of course, I would actually treat it a little bit more caring, shall we say, or one of the, oh goodness me, what do they call them? The not the clusters, the ones that are more fragile. You've got to be contextual with how you actually treat them anyway. So you will know when you hold it how hardy it is. Okay, so can you throw it in the bowl? Some of them you actually can. You can throw them in the bowl with other crystals, like with my lucky dip. But the reality is it can actually scratch the other crystals. So we would take a little bit of care that way. When it comes to cleansing and purifying it, though, it copes with most stuff. I mean, if it's one of those clusters that has got like the Pyritohedrons, if that's how you pronounce it, there's a material that's actually cementing those things together. And I say the word cement, but that's not the correct term. But it keeps them all together. And when we expose it to water, as discussed, moisture makes it oxidize. So does water. Water is moisture. And so therefore they will fall apart. So you wouldn't be holding some of them under the tap to actually wash, even if they've got a bit of dust on them. But I have to say, I have to put my hand up and say, look, there have been times when I've given things a quick rinse and then let them dry out. But of course, if you're going to do anything like that, you've got to be aware that you may actually damage the structure of the entire cluster. So I would give it, if it was really dust infested, I might actually give it a quick blast with water and then dry it off with a cloth. But rule of thumb, you wouldn't want to do that very often. You wouldn't want to be leaving it out in the rain. Pyrite will cope with being exposed to sunlight. The issue with doing that, if you're anything like me, I've said this, if you're a returning visitor, I've said this again and again, and I will continue to say it again and again. Anything that sparkles here in Australia, if we put that out overnight to be exposed to the morning dawn sunlight or whatever, the chances are some little bird or a bigger one is going to fly in and pinch your sparklies off the table or wherever it is that you've laid them out. If you're going to bury it back in the earth, you need to make sure that you keep track of where you actually buried it, especially if you plan to leave it out there for a couple of days. You want to be able to find it going forward. Or if you're anything like me and you have a little puppy that can be a bit mischievous, the chances are the puppy might move it. So you've got to be very careful as far as that goes. But look, moonlight, definitely pyrite can cope with that. Perhaps on the windowsill, cleanse from the windowsill. In Australia, I think as I swallow, I think pyrite would actually cope on the windowsill and get the exposure to the sunlight that way. That would be fine. But as always, my preference for any form of cleansing, clearing, or recharging of crystals tends to be with the selenite as opposed to any other form of crystal, because I think it's the safest way. And certainly there's not an issue with pyrite on a selenite log for clearing and cleansing. But the other thing, of course, we've got the smudging stick here. Pyrite will definitely cope with incense and smudging that way as part of clearing it. Well, my friends, with all the delays with technology, with the slow internet speed and everything else, it is now 1:30 in the afternoon. Now, as you're aware, I actually started recording this at 9 a.m. this morning. So what I'm saying and where I'm going with this is I'm going to love you, leave you, move on. I think I'm actually just going to go and hide. We call it playing wombat. I'm just going to go and find myself a cool little place with the air conditioner and snuggle down. In the meantime, I will say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Thank you for your tolerance and patience. I look forward to catch you on the next video. Please don't forget, like, subscribe, leave me a comment, introduce yourself. Let's form a community, okay? Take care. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.